remain on course. So, yeah, we are speaking about something very, very interesting. But before we get started, how many of us here are front-end engineers or front-end developers? Okay. And how many of us are back-end developers? You know, besides product managers, there are some people, besides product managers, we didn't even developers, right? There's one person that the front-end developer always fights with. And it's very, very simple. It's another field developer. Sometimes it's two. Okay, besides, no, let's keep QA aside. Let's keep PM aside. Design, oh, sorry, those guys are from, sorry, I'm not with So yeah, so between engineers, right, there's always this argument between front-end and back-end. And it's usually because of one thing, right? And oftentimes it's because of you wrote an endpoint, yes, it works for you. But for me as a front-end developer, I don't even know what I'm supposed to pass, right? Half of the time, if we write good documentations for people, API references, this will definitely solve most of the issues that we have. But as even when we are talking about internal developers, like internal APIs, imagine you're building public-facing APIs. Say you're building APIs that people externally are using for their own products. So their product depends on you. Dependency is hard, right? But then it's like necessary in some situations. For example, not everybody is going to build a payment gateway, right? And not everybody is going to build a logistics really to be able to serve their product. So this talk is wrapped around both public and internal APIs, but most especially people who are building for the public space, where other people are building stores. And I think a couple of talks were given both yesterday and today around writing documentation or around consuming APIs and probably working with integrations. So I'm just going to share a couple of things that I've learned over the years and how we've been able to translate those knowledge to some of the things we're doing at Monify. I'll talk about Monify in a bit, in a moment. So these are our learnings over the years and lessons that I'm trying to bring it into the team to be able to give you a very, very good experience. And I think everybody else should also be doing the same thing when they're building public-facing APIs, documentations for them. My name is very, very simple. My name is Auwal MS, and over the years I've got the opportunity to wear multiple different caps. Developer, was it engineer, PMs in some situations, engineering managers somewhere else, and developer relations. So I currently serve as head of developer relations as well as integration support for Team Act, which means I cover a couple of products including Monify. So Team Act builds products for banks and people or fintechs that are trying to implement payment-related rails. But Monify is oftentimes the public-facing product that oftentimes developers interact with. It's a payment gateway that helps you receive payment seamlessly across the country. If at any point in time you have a question, and should in case I run out of time, just like Uchi here earlier, my contact details are here. You can reach me on Twitter at AuwalMS, on LinkedIn at AuwalMS still, or you can just shoot me an email, mohammed.samu@moneypoint.com. So let's look at what does it cost for you to, what's the cost of a very poorly written documentation? First thing first, if it's not an internal API, the developers will probably just lost interest, and the next moment everybody tells them, hey, into your integrating A, they're telling you no. You can see situations whereby they will tell you yes, but then that product doesn't get out. Or maybe if you're a public-facing API where people really need to do it and then became very worried, and they can probably just be like, okay, let's just use a different competitor to the person. And then if your APIs are poorly documented, there's a high tendency that every 1 minute somebody is creating a ticket whether it's Zendex, whether it's sending an email to tell you, hey, it is not working, what is happening, and the rest. So that will increase the number of tickets that gets created for you. And the goal of a documentation or the goal of a developer relationship, or even a backend engineer who's building stuff, nobody likes to build stuff and come back to maintain it or like provide support for it. Yes, you will have to do that, but oftentimes you will prefer, once you build stuff and deploy, it should support itself. You know, when we usually say a nicely written code does not need comment, right? Whoever is reading it will understand. So that's how you should approach your documentation. So when you do this, and developers love your documentation, it boosts adoption. People will definitely want to like, okay, integrate this because it's easy to be able to like understand. It reduces the number of tickets that get created because it is obviously easy for anybody to understand, and it also helps you to build a community of followers who love your APIs or love your products. It also gives your front-end engineer sort of like confidence that if you're the one building this, then I'm sure that I'm going to get something great and like it will be documented. So please, for the grace of God and for the love of God and anything that you believe in, please write the documentations. So let's look at how you're able to do that. The topic clearly says it's art and it's science, right? The arts part of it involves creating a very engaging content. What you're writing should be very, very clear, and it should solve the problem that the person is trying to achieve. So let's look at the first thing here. An empathetic as well as an engaging content. And it shouldn't be just about what you say, it should be how you say it, right? If you're writing documentation for humans, not for AIs, right? Please write it in a very clear and concise manner. It should be it should serve the audience you're trying to use. Please, you know how, you remember when Paul Graham from Y Combinator was having, there was an issue that happened on Twitter, if you remember, about people submitting, was it Lovable? No, it was about, I think it was about people submitting applications to Y Combinator, and the very moment he hears, oh, yeah. If you use some keywords, it just assumes it's AI. Because why? We don't use that word. I can't say, okay, let's delve into us now. Yeah, we do. Yeah, no, on a very honest note, it's a good case for us in Nigeria, right? Or in Africa, where we're taught English a different way from how other people do English. Like, in the US, it's probably like everything. Yeah, so it's their fault. Yeah, but like, you're not building for only Nigerians. Nobody builds stuff for just a local market. So please write it, what do you call it? Please use very, very clear words. It should be passive, it should be active, and it should be very, very concise. And I'm going to show you an example. The goal is to have it helpful, make it friendly, and make it encouraging. And I'm going to show you what we did here. So you can see what we're doing here. This is Monify's collection API. In our documentation, we were very, very clear about what we want to do. For collection, in the section for the collection APIs, we tell you you're going to learn how to receive payment from your customers using Monify API. And if you see what we have down there, which is this part here, we're describing exactly what this will do. If you're using our customer reserve API, what you're going to learn is you're going to be able to give your users static, unique account numbers to be able to receive payment. The very moment you come and you're looking for, okay, how do I give people account numbers, static account number? The very moment you see here, you know, this fits my goal. This is the objective of why I'm here, right? The goal is clear. The messaging is very, very clear. It's very important that your user, and your user in this case here could be another developer. It could be a different product manager who is trying to check, okay, do you have what I am looking for? So the second thing here is don't just say it. Because like, besides, this is like an API. API means your users are technical users, right? If they're technical users, the difference between a technical article and a non-technical article is the code that is there. I want you to show me what it is. How do I do? So having code snippet In the case of internal documentation, you will assume the person will know what he needs to do. In the case of external APIs, it is not going to be that easy. You don't know who is going to be able to implement this. How an experienced engineer with probably 5 to 10 years experience is going to integrate your platform, the expectation is different from what a person who is just starting. Nowadays, everybody is an engineer. If I go do bootcamp for 6 months, and you come and say, how far now, if you like build this e-commerce platform, and thank God when I was learning how to do HTML and CSS, and I got one course like that teaches how to do the e-commerce platform. If you tell me you want e-commerce, what is my answer? Yes. I can't, right? But then when the person comes to integrate payment gateways, that's when it's going to be like, wait. You remember what Simi was saying? The person will shoot himself in the leg, but you will not know until when money starts going out. So it's very, very important you give people examples, code examples to show what is expected of them, how the request is going to look like. If possible, give them as many languages example, right? For example, if the person is writing the code using Java, there should be a way for the person to be able to see the code snippet using Java, right? You are never going to be able to write exactly what he needs to do, because your approach, the architecture, the folder structure can be totally different. But give people examples. They should know this is how to implement it in Java, this is how to implement it in Node.js, this is what you need to do if you're using Python. Your responses, I think also, it was stated earlier by Simi, there should be schema, it should be clear schema for how the response is going to come back, right? And it should be very, very well formatted, whether it's JSON or XML. If you've used XML, if you've gotten XML as a response in any of your requests before, I have no business talking to you. Because you've seen enough shading to know to do the right thing. So yes, in your documentation also, when you're writing documentations, please ensure you have clear use cases of what people can use, guide people, right? If it's internal, that's understandable. But even that is not really understandable because the developer knows where you stay, so he can ask you a question. If you like talk, say, I don't finish on Friday, we'll still meet on Monday. That's actually how it is. And then you provide more support than you need. That's the bad side of it. So talking about like having code snippet, in our revamped documentation, we try to make that possible for you. I'm not sure you can see this part of the code. You can see Node.js, Axios, so we give people, we want to give developers the option to be able to like check how this can be implemented. This uses Axios. Maybe you're the type that said, I don't want to use any library to do API calls, so I'm just going to write fetch APIs. I have just shown you how it can be done. It's up to you. Like I mentioned, different people have different, preference, right, about what they want to use. And yes, here is where requests get to go out and what the response looks like. So have clear response. You have a schema of what it's going to supposed to be like, what the response is here, right? There's a show schema here where you can see what the response, every response is going to be. You also have clarity about what the request is supposed to be. Because all of you people that wake up in the morning and finish building your API, they ask you for endpoint, you send them Postman link without clearly documenting. There's a documenter on Postman. Don't say, no, I use Postman, I don't use Swagger, because you're trying to run away from writing documentation. You can write documentation on Postman. Please, stop suffering our people. So yeah, so that was an example of what you call authorized OTP documentation, the API reference part of it. And a very, very important thing here is, this talk also covers around developer experience. Half of the time, if I want to test your products, if I want to test what the functionality of your product, what we usually do is we want to go and check probably demo in your use case, right? In the case of APIs, for backend engineer, you have to set up probably Postman. If you're lucky to have Swagger set up on the API you're trying to use, then that solves your issue. If it is not, you have to set up Postman. In short, setting up tooling is something I don't even want to do. If possible, and I know people are going to be like, that's why we're using Postman now, so that the person can see what the response and the request is and can simulate it. But how about you want it to be tested on the browser? So that's one of the things we try to do, because developers will definitely want to do, so I know I have 10 minutes left. So give the developers the option to be able to try out what you have built. The functionality is very, very important. Ensure you list out if you have like pre-built SDKs and library. You remember when Sidi was saying, whatever you're going to do your request from an SDK, because you know where it's coming from, and you need to change anything. That SDK is where you're changing what you need to change that goes out. Postman collection, Open API specs, or Swagger, whatever the word is. Try your best to be able to provide that for the user that's using your stuff. So interactive experience, very, very important when you're building documentation that people want to use. If you look at the bottom right of this request that shows you what the request is, we have an option for you to be able to test that request. So what that basically means is, in our revamped documentation, you have the option to be able to try a request, do whatever you want to do. If it works for you, then give it a run, right? We have public API keys and secret keys for you, but it's just for the sake of this. It's on sandbox environment, doesn't work on live, and then the keys can be reset. But what is most important here, right, is when you do this, if you build stuff and give developers the option to test a request, and somebody created a ticket and told you, this is not working, ideally, when I have to do this type of call, what I do is I tell the person, okay, let's forget about your code. Let's go to our documentation and try it out live. If it works, it's your code. If it doesn't work, it's my system. So it solves all that issue of, it is not working, let's go. It is not in my system, it is not in your system, it's online. If we test it and see it works, then we know it works. So that's the art of it, making it engaging, right? Remember to make it clear, and we're going to do a review of that. So the science is actually on the structure and the usability of what you've written as a documentation. Make it very, very easy for people to be able to search what they want to search. There should be clear hierarchy that says, okay, this is collection, this is disbursement, this is verification. People know what exactly they're looking for. Very clear, intuitive, and make it, as much as possible, make it easy for people to be able to like search, to be able to like filter out what they don't want to filter. So, and this is an example of how we did it in our modified documentation. You can clearly see what is the header and what are some of the things that fall under those categories. I know that guy is telling me 5 minutes left. I'm going to act as if I didn't hear him or I didn't see him. Yeah, so please, semantic version is very important. If your API, if this API is in V1, the other one is in V2, there should be clarity about that. And so your documentation should also have, okay, this is V1 of our documentation, there should be V2. If for any reason the last time I read the documentation, it was in the V1, right, and you changed something, please let me know. Semantic versioning is very important. The other thing also, change logs that says, okay, this is what has changed. As at the last time I read your documentation in January, this is what has changed. In February, this is what has changed in March. And then I can be able to tell, okay, maybe something has changed in the API that I've integrated. So it's very, very important. And as much as possible, please create migration guides for people. You move from version 1 to version 2, and there's breaking change. Just know that if you just sit there, just say God forbid. Every single moment, just say God forbid, because somebody is going to be cursing you from somewhere because you broke their system. You remember that, I think, okay, it was on the other talk there, where Anthony was saying about people telling them, we're never using your system again. You broke ours. So like, things like that. Someone will curse you. This one, like, okay, the executive level will probably be like, we don't like what you did, but the engineer that will be called from church, now that person will curse you. I mean, they sleep on a good Christmas day. Now that one will cost you, as you just move, if you have a public facing API that you build, that is not properly documented, as you move, just because things will happen. So key principle number 6, right? Documentation should be considered as a product. Check how often, what do you call it? Check how often people visit. What is the page that gets the most visit? And please usually add questions or probably feedback mechanism on your documentation page so that people can give you feedback on how things are going, and you will be able to understand where there is a documentation gap. Like I mentioned earlier, this is not a talk for technical writers, it's actually for backend engineers. You're the people I'm looking at. So an example of how we did it, we have a change log in our navigation bar. We also have a situation where you can give us feedback. Okay, how helpful was this? Tell us what you think, and that helps you. More than even how it helps the user or the integrator, right? It helps you, you know where things are going wrong and where things are going right. So, in a nutshell, key takeaways from here is, please, the art of it is you being empathetic, have a very, very clear writing about what should be done, right? As well as show people, give people the option to be able to see how it works. The scientific part is actually how the structure is. Make it very, very structural. People can be able to discover what they need to discover, get them to interact. The best way to learn is to do it. In software development, you can watch a YouTube video every day for the next 7 years. As far as if you've never written code, you still haven't started, right? So please give them the option to be able to try out stuff and know that developer experience is very, very important. I know that guy said 1 minute left, so I am going to be taking questions. Bros, now, because I call your name, now why you can't show me time up? They fear God now. So I will probably answer one question. If he lets me, else I am going to be around, and I'll do my best to answer any question you may have. Anyone with a question? Sure.
I have a question, but it's not like a tangential question of this topic that you are talking about, public-facing APIs, right? You mentioned at the important point, developer onboarding, how not having proper documentation can slow that down. So my question is, what framework or idea have you found? Because I've not found a lot of resources that discuss it. About documenting, say, your internal APIs, internal features, not just comments in code, but like a living document that as you build, you continuously update, so that new developers can quickly catch up on what the product is about. Thank you.
Okay, so when it comes to internal documentation, right? I think I mentioned Postman. Been a very, the whole idea of a living document depends on you, the person that built it, to keep updating it, right? You're the one who has to give it life. The life from a living document is you constantly updating it. So it can be a Confluence page, it can be Postman documentation, it can be even Google Doc, right? Everything depends on you. It has to be a commitment by you and members of your team to always update that. If anything changes, just like I mentioned around change log, it's very, very important that you update what needs to be updated, right? There's actually no simple, easy way. You can probably think of doing the automated way. I know AIs now will probably be starting writing documentation for us, right? If things change, in the past we used Java docs, JS docs to be able to just automatically create document based on comment, right? But if you now come and update something and did not update the comment, people will still see shaky. So I think I'm just standing between you and lunch, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't want to be doing fair work. So let's come to the end of it. I just have one thing, just 2 slides to show, and it's not like I'm talking. If you want to check out how the new documentation, the revamped documentation we did, it's the first option. Please check it out. I'm going to be around. Me and a couple of members of our team are here to be able to answer any question you may have. I'm around to be able to answer. It's on Playground before we go live. Normal, and the main difference between it is actually on the API reference page, between the first link and the second link. But I invite you to join our community on Slack. It's just on slack.modify.com. But before you go and eat, since the good thing is you people are going out to eat, right? Before you go out and eat, I have one task for you, and you can do it very easily. And that is here, right? I'm just running a survey on payment gateways, right? I'm trying to understand, and it is not payment gateway specific. I just want to have an understanding on how payment gateways have shown you shading, and how has been your experience so far. So if you've ever integrated payment gateway, or you've never, right? Either way, please help me fill this survey. Most of the questions are actually radio buttons and drop down for you to be able to select. It probably takes you a minute. If you forgot to take it here, at the door of most of the halls, at the reception, down at the door of the sponsors lounge, there's actually this QR code there. Please help me fill this. I just want to have a good understanding of how best to support you. Even if you've never integrated a payment gateway, it's what I'm interested in you. I want to know, what exactly do you think you will need when you want to integrate payment gateway? And that is it. Please and please and please, stop writing beans. Sorry.